Hey everyone, Eric right here from the DIscoPosse podcast. Thanks very much for watching, and I've got a lot of really great stuff. As you can see by all the video we're doing on the channel, we are featuring much more. The visual, it's easier, I think, for folks to really kind of tap into the fun that we have in these conversations when they can see eye to eye. With that, I want to introduce Peter Voss. Peter was fantastic. He's the chief scientist and founder of Aigo, so it's Aigo.ai. They're doing some really, really neat stuff, and he truly is the originator of the phrase artificial general intelligence. So if you're going to talk to somebody about AI and AGI, Peter's kind of the one you want to talk to. I've been really, really blessed by the amazing guests we've had. And of course, it's made possible by all our fine folks like Veeam Software. If you want to check out more about them, you can go to VEE.am/DIscoPosse. Diabolical Coffee. That's right, Diabolical Coffee. I definitely didn't mean to knock over those coffee cups. So Diabolical Coffee, go to diabolicalcoffee.com. And on top of that, if you want to be able to check out how to better relate and connect with people and learn how to become a better technical seller or product marketer, you can go to velocityclosing.com. That's right, velocityclosing.com. The advantage there is I've actually dropped the price on the 4-step guide to delivering extraordinary software demos. It's an ebook. You also get an audiobook. It was $27. It's been very successful, and I'm pleased with that. And because of it, I've decided to make it much more accessible to folks, so we've dropped the price to $5. Not only that, but I've added to the bundle that you get 12 monthly coaching sessions. I do a group coaching. We call it an AMA. So you can jump in. You can join us for those every month. We've got one coming up very soon. Always. So no matter when you watch this, there's one every month. So get signed up. Go to velocityclosing.com. It's only $5 and you get all of that cool stuff. So anyways, check it out. This is Peter Voss from Aigo.ai. I hope you enjoy the show. I want to thank you, Peter, for joining today, because the one thing I've really found is the most prominent thing in conversations as I go and talk to more technologists and more founders is obviously AI is pervasive in a lot of what we're doing, and as is the misunderstanding of it. The difference between AI and AGI, so the idea of, where traditional just formulaic AI comes in and machine learning. And so there's a lot of crossover, I think, just in general, that I think would be great to share with the audience, as well as what you and the Aigo team are tackling. But with that, if you want to give us a quick introduction for folks that don't already know you, Peter, and then we'll jump in from there.
Okay. Yes, I'm Peter Voss, and I'm the founder, CEO, and chief scientist of Aigo.ai. But I've actually been working on artificial general intelligence for more than 20 years now, and we'll talk more about what artificial general intelligence is. So it's really what we see ultimately what we see in the movies and what we expect in artificial intelligence to be able to do. So I've been alternating between doing research by myself with a team of people and then commercializing it over the last 20 years.
Now, this is where it's a very interesting thing in that you're chief scientist as well as founder. You've had a real personal, deep involvement in the development of technologies and practices around this. And, when we look at where Aigo is coming in, maybe if you want to introduce sort of what's the challenges that Aigo is aiming to solve, and as well as how your background really led you to start that team.
Right. So yeah, I'll give a quick rundown of my background. I started out as an electronics engineer, started my own company, then fell in love with programming as hardware became programmable. So my company turned into a software company. I developed an ERP software system, quite successful in that, actually managed to take the company public. And it's when I exited that company, I had enough sort of time and money on my hands to say, well, what do I really want to do next? And the thing that struck me is just how dumb software really is. And I was very proud of the software that I developed, but still, whatever the programmer doesn't think of, it's just going to come up with an error or do something, not so elegant. So I really wanted to understand how we can bring intelligence into software, how we can make software intelligent. And I took off 5 years actually to really study intelligence from all different aspects, from starting with philosophy, epistemology, theory of knowledge. How do we know anything? What's reality? What's our relationship to reality? But also cognitive psychology, psychometrics. What do IQ tests measure? Are they meaningful? What is IQ? How do children learn? How does our intelligence differ from animal intelligence? All of those different aspects of really deeply understanding intelligence. And then, of course, studying what had been done in the field of AI. And it's really the culmination of those studies that I came up with a design for a thinking machine. And in 2001, I then launched my first AI company, Adaptive AI, and hired about a dozen people. And for several years, we basically built various prototypes of testing my ideas, testing the designs, and coming up with various iterations of that. In 2001, I actually also coined the term artificial general intelligence together with 2 other people. And that is really to distinguish what we were doing with what pretty much everybody else in AI is doing. And we can talk more about the difference between AI and AGI. So it's really, since then, I've been on this mission to make AGI happen, to make real intelligence happen. And by 2008, I launched the first commercial company called Smart Action. There's now about 100 people. And Smart Action uses this early AGI technology to make much better automated call center experience. Normally when you call into a company and you talk to a robot, people hate that and they just press 0 to get to an operator. So, with our technology, having some intelligence, basically that technology is called IVR, interactive voice response. And the way we describe our product is an IVR with a brain. So, it can have some understanding, some memory, some reasoning. So you have a much better experience and you can handle more complex conversations. So that was 2008 that I launched that company. And I found over the years, I was getting bogged down with running a SaaS company. Basically, all of the, we built our own data centers, redundancy, HIPAA compliance, PCI compliance, scalability, security, all of those kinds of things. And didn't really have enough time to also move forward on the AI side, on the intelligence side. So I exited the company about 7 years ago to start Aigo.ai. And with a new team of what we call AI psychologists, linguists, and cognitive psychologists, basically concentrated on just the core technology. So for 6 years, we didn't sign up any customers, or 5 years, just concentrating on technology. So last year, we finally launched Aigo.ai commercially. And what we're doing again is conversational AI. So we've not been focusing on anything like vision or robotics or anything like that, purely on conversation. So that's what Aigo.ai does now, is working with enterprise clients to be able to offer them a much better conversational AI and hyper-personalized AI.
And I think the interesting thing when we get caught up in the AI, especially when we get into chatbots and conversational AI, there's a real sort of struggle, I think, where people don't understand what it enables more so than what it displaces. There's an unfortunate sense that this is effectively impacting, where humans belong, right? Because but at the same time, in fact, I believe, and a lot of folks, and yourself included, right? This very much elevates the ability for humans to interact where they need to versus where they feel they have to, which is, I think, where a lot of this frontline conversational AI is a fantastic opportunity. Because if you look in especially health services and call centers, the difference between the traditional IVR is when someone angrily is mashing the zero key or yelling at the IVR, where we introduce those technologies and capabilities up front, you can detect that, and there's opportunity to do sentiment analysis and additional things to really pull that through, so that when the human, there is no recourse now but to hand you to an operator, hand you to a person, a doctor, or somebody. They're much more informed about where the state of this customer and their consumer, this recipient is. And that's why I see a huge value. But what is your sense when you talk to people about this, and their initial reactions when you say conversational AI and what the value is?
Well, the first thing, of course, is people generally have a pretty bad experience with them. Now, I think that's sort of bifurcating in a way. People still have a bad experience usually when they call into a large company and they're trying to get stuff done and they get stuck in IVR hell, or
Yeah.
or the chatbot really can't do anything for them. But on the other hand, people have experience and have learned how to use Siri and Alexa and so on, and more and more people are finding it useful, even with its very limited. I mean, it's really not. They're not conversational. They're really one shot. Stimulus response. You say something, blah blah blah, and then it responds with one thing. It's not really that you can have a conversation with them as such, but it gives people a glimpse of how conversational AI can be useful, or how talking to a computer can be useful. Now, in terms of enterprise, there's it's very difficult to run a call center. It's very difficult to find people, to train them up and to have them stick around to be able to handle the same kind of query day after day, and complaints and so on. So it's not generally the most desirable job, especially for the more mundane and routine things. And it's actually very difficult to find good staff. So there is a tremendous shortage. There's actually a big demand for that, for people to self-serve. And increasingly, people actually also, there's a larger and larger percentage of people who actually don't want to talk to human, who prefer to just have technology that works for them. People are used to just doing stuff on their phone or on the website or whatever. And if they can just get it done well, they'd actually prefer that. So it's a win-win situation. But our ambition and what's driving me and what's driving the company ultimately is to really have something like a personal assistant, a hyper-personalized assistant that really knows you, knows what you want. And whether that is initially supplied by a company that you do repeat business with, like your insurance company or financial institution or medical or whatever, that gets to know you, gets to know what you want, protects your privacy, and can get things done for you. But ultimately, we actually see that being owned by the person, and we call that a personal assistant. Personal in actually three different meanings of the word. Personal, that you own it, it's yours. So it serves your purpose, not some mega corporation's agenda. That's a first personal, you own it. The second personal is it's hyper personalized to you, it's customized to you. It's not a one size fits all as we have now. And the third personal is the privacy issue, that it treats your data, your information in a personal way, and only shares things that you want to share with whoever you want to share it with. So that's sort of the ultimate vision that we see. And in fact, as this personal assistant becomes more powerful, it really becomes an exocortex, an extension of your own brain, that will enhance your memory, help you think things through and do things for you.
And you talked earlier and you brought up some interesting discussion points. Well, the one thing is, you definitely took time off to very thoughtfully, mindfully, and intellectually approach what you were doing, right? Most folks would kind of just jump right in and build the plane as they fly it. You made a conscious choice to take time off and go to the roots of cognitive psychology, behavioral psychology, and like how we learn, not just even when you said it, you said not just how we learn, but how children learn, how adult like. So clearly you took a lot of your lessons from business and you said, as I approach this next thing, it seems to me that when you said I'm going to approach this next thing, I want to do it in the most, like, you really wanted to approach this in the most intellectual and appropriate, ethical way, right? So, like, what's the reason why this stuff occurs? And that's a difficult patience pattern, right? Most people don't have the patience to go back to the roots and then take that and then bring it into the technology. So, I can't imagine that that was a light decision for you to really go back to the core of why and how we learn to take that first step.
Well, actually, it was. It was very, very easy. And the reason being that I'm inherently very interested in philosophy and psychology in addition to AI. So there was really this deep curiosity for me to understand, what is consciousness, what is free will, what is intelligence, and what makes us tick, where do emotions fit in? So, really from a personal point of view, to better understand myself, to understand the world, and just intellectual curiosity. Um, so that was actually pretty easy. And then the other part was that clearly AI, uh, the field of AI, gotten stuck. We've had AI winters, and AI wasn't anywhere near delivering the promise or the goal of when, the term was coined 60 plus years ago. It was all about building machines, thinking machines, machines that can think and learn and reason the way humans do. And originally, 60 years ago, they thought they'd crack this in, a few years or something. And then as decades went by, AI really got lost. So instead of pursuing, because it turned out to be really, really hard. So instead of pursuing the goal of thinking machines, AI turned into narrow AI, where basically you say, well, let's solve one problem that humans do at a time. I mean, the famous one is obviously Deep Blue, chess playing.
Right.
That's it's also a nice logical type of problem. So you could, and so over the decades, AI became narrow AI. But it's more profound than that. It's actually not just is it narrow AI, but it's what I describe as external intelligence. It's the intelligence of the programmer, of the data scientist. They pick a problem, they figure out in their heads through using their intelligence how they're going to solve this problem using software, using a computer, using hardware, or using data now as well. But it's their solution that is then turned into code or into a data model that then solves that problem. So the intelligence doesn't really reside in the computer, in the software, so much as it does in the designer. And of course, that's been quite successful in a number of areas, but it's not ultimately what artificial intelligence. You need the intelligence to be in the machine, in the software, that it can learn and it can reason. So that if it could learn how to play chess, or how to do medical diagnosis, or how to do translation or whatever, and not by brute force, not by giving it gazillions of examples and then kind of building a model, but learning more the way we do. A child can learn how to identify a giraffe or an elephant seeing one picture. It will then be able to identify it. And so it's not a statistical thing that's really the core to intelligence. So it's it's really realizing that AI didn't seem to be on the right path. So I needed to deeply understand what intelligence is to build an intelligence machine, and then to compare it to what had been done in the field. So I attended dozens of conferences, both on the connectionist side and on the logic side, sort of good old-fashioned, what's now called good old-fashioned AI, and then a statistical connectionist. And one of the things that struck me is these two fields didn't talk to each other at all. They were often trying to
Sadly, isn't it?
look at the same problem, but they couldn't make the connection between the two. So I really came to the conclusion that a fundamentally different approach was needed to get back to the original dream. And this is why we coined the term artificial general intelligence to really distinguish it from narrow AI and to try and recapture what the original intent of AI was.
Yeah, and if you again, like the sort of the mapping of the concepts, like you said, of a child can literally be shown a picture of an elephant or a balloon, and they can fairly immediately learn that process. But yeah, we've got Deep Blue, able to take down the greatest chess players on earth, but you couldn't put it in front of a checkers game and have it win because it was very, very specific in what it was targeting. And another person who I read of a lot of and sort of followed in the career, Ray Kurzweil, of course, also with his concepts of talking about how to create a mind. And I'll look at Ray's example and I treat him sort of like a futurist, more like obviously there's stuff he's actively doing, but it's not on the forefront. You're taking that sort of first principles approach, and you're actively trying to affect the outcome and actually create something from it. So where do you see that merger between, say, the think tank, where you have to understand why we're doing it, and it's very easy to stay in that research phase, I would believe, because there's probably a healthy ecosystem for that, without having to go and now at a commercial side try and bring this to the market?
So it's a very interesting question. How much progress can you make with a sort of academic or theoretical approach, and how much progress can you make with it being commercially driven? And the conclusion I've come to is that you really need both. And there's sort of the technical, theoretical reason why you need it, and then there's potentially the practical reason. So the practical reason is that your commercial side can generate the money to pay for the research. Now, obviously, if you can find other ways of paying for research, then you wouldn't need that. But research by itself usually has strings attached to it, and that could really hobble it. And I've seen this with the success of deep learning and machine learning over the last almost 10 years now. Research in true AI has really come to a standstill because it sucked all of the oxygen out of the air. If you want to do a PhD, it's deep learning or nothing.
Yeah.
You want to get funding for a project, you want to get published. So research is actually, and even getting funding from some rich person or something, how likely are they to fund something that isn't deep learning or machine learning? Because that's what all the experts say. For example, we had a brilliant intern from Germany work for us, and he really understood the sort of cognitive science and the approach we were taking. And so he was with us for a year, and then he went back to Germany to do his PhD. He couldn't find a sponsor for cognitive architecture, cognitive approach, so he ended up doing it in deep learning, machine learning.
Wow.
We lost him to that, and then of course you become an expert in that field, and that's going to be your career, and you're lost. So that's talking about the if you could just do pure research by itself and had the funding, and it wasn't constrained by the sort of academic constraints of funding and publishing and sponsorship and so on, then yes, I think you could make progress. And I mean, I obviously personally spent a lot of time in sort of R&D mode, the original 5 years, and then we spent another 5 years with a team of 12 people. And then when I started Aigo, again, another 5 years of sort of development. It wasn't so much research anymore because we already knew what we needed to do. It was really more developing the technology further. And 5 years seems like, people say, well, 5 years, why do you take 5 years? Well, part of it was we could only afford to hire 12 people. If I had been able to hire 100 people, then it probably would have only taken 2 years. It doesn't obviously scale.
Right.
Takes you a year or more just to find the right people and bring them on board, and so on. But there's a deeper reason why I believe you really want both of them, and that is, looking back now, I found that a lot of the early work that we did in R&D was useful, but wasn't as useful as it could be, because you pick your own problem space, and it's just too easy to pick problems that you can solve, rather than pick problems you have to solve.
The very roots of human behavior, right? We know, we look for that. There's an outcome that we can achieve here, and we will receive a happy response as a result.
Right. Even if they're very difficult problems, but sort of problems you feel you can solve, and then the things where you get stuck on. Well, okay, we'll get to that later. We don't know how to solve this problem, so you don't always pursue and work on the things that are really, really important to solve intelligence. Whereas if you have a commercial a project, or a very particular practical problem you're trying to solve, that's your reality check. That's your grounding. You have to solve every problem that gets in the way. So that is where having a particular task, it doesn't have to be monetarily commercial, but having a practical goal you're trying to achieve, I think is really, really important, that your R&D isn't just theoretical, is grounded, basically. Now, the downside of the commercial side is what I call the narrow AI trap. And it's basically, as soon as you have a commercial goal, you clearly want to satisfy your customers as quickly as possible. You usually have to satisfy investors as well. So what happens is, instead of solving the problem the way it should be solved, with the intelligence in the machine, you resort to external intelligence. So as a programmer, you say, oh, I know how to solve that problem. I'll just write a program, or I'll hard code this, or I know how to solve it. And basically, that hard coding then goes into your data model, or into your code. So it's very, very difficult to pursue commercial goals and not fall into that narrow AI trap. So it's really the experience I've had for so long now that allows me to better balance those two things. It's still tough, because obviously we want to deliver the best possible product to our customers as quickly as possible and as cheaply as possible. So that always pulls you away from solving intelligence.
And it's a real interesting thing that I'd like to dig in a bit further on, Peter, because it highlights for me the challenge, like you said, where we end up, even in the field of research, where people could do incredible work, funding it ultimately moves them down this trap of going towards things that are believed to be valuable in funding. Just in the same way that when you take on investors, the goal of venture capital investors is to get an outsized return on their investment. They love and believe in what you're doing, but they more so believe in your ability to deliver an outsized result from that investment. And so there's different things that are at play in the choice for how to go towards the outcome. And I find that research, that's where I see the struggle happening, is that some incredible people, they have to immediately move to either, like you said, areas where they know they can get funded, or they have to immediately move to the commercial side and exit the research system, exit the school system, and then take on somebody else's goal. And it's, I find, how do you feel about that? Like, do you feel like there's a bit of a rift in our ability to innovate and get that sort of the more first principles thinkers, giving them the time and the funding to achieve better results?
Yes, it would be nice if more people with deep pockets would, understand this issue, this dilemma of doing the kind of research that is properly grounded and isn't just about, getting the next paper published or having an incremental improvement on some benchmark, from 92.3% to 92.8%, and then okay, you get published and you've done something, but you've probably not really moved the field forward. So yeah, I think the answer is to have people that have enough money, that have the luxury of pursuing things that don't necessarily have a short-term return, or not the maximum short-term return, but at the same time being grounded, not just wasting their money on, a lot of anti-aging research seems to have been sort of, okay, let's throw a few billion at this, that some rich people have done, but without really deeply understanding what they're trying to do or how they're going to do it. Now, I could obviously be criticized for this this comment. It's an area of interest for me, but I'm certainly not that expert in it. But it seems that doing more of the research to fundamentally understand aging first, the way sort of I think it's important to really understand intelligence first before you try to build an intelligent machine. I think the model, I mean, there are a lot of rich people out there in the world that have much more money than they clearly need, for themselves to be happy and comfortable. And I think Elon Musk is a fantastic example of using his money and actually getting investors behind him. I mean, going to Mars, does that make any sense? Well, it makes sense to some people, but what does it take to actually get to Mars? And obviously, I mean, it's amazing the kind of innovations he comes up with, but it's clearly not for short-term commercial gain. But the technology he's developing, and sort of almost as a byproduct of wanting to go to Mars, is incredibly valuable, or will be incredibly valuable. So it'd be good to have more of that. But in the field of AI, it's really just been marching down the wrong path in the approaches that are taken now. And I talk about using DARPA's model of the 3 waves of AI. Basically, everybody's still working and focused, and all the money is going into first and second wave, and almost no effort is going into the third wave of AI, cognitive architectures.
Now, the one thing that I think is also the challenge and the struggle when we get into moving towards that third wave and advanced AGI is the very human fear of replacement. Where and in general, just also the ethics, I think, are a strong thing. And look, I don't want to pull into a huge ethics discussion, because you've probably been asked that far more than you'd wish to spend your hours on. But when we talk about, if we had a system where, effectively a machine is told to come to the greatest outcome of, like, how do you reduce the spread of contagions? Well, by some means, you could guess that an AGI would say, well, easy, get rid of those that spread the contagion. Reduce, like if it chooses a goal that you didn't believe was the actual goal, but the machine understands, well, I've got a better way to get to this goal. And there's a real human attachment to that scenario. I'm just curious on how often you get pulled into those discussions, and where you see those playing out in people's understanding of what AGI truly can do.
Right. Well, I'm actually pretty happy to get drawn into discussions of ethics and AI ethics. I've actually written quite a lot about ethics as well. And I don't find that generally people are afraid of AI. There's obviously a whole industry now of AI risk, that has its own momentum of scrambling for funding. And, to my mind, it wasn't very helpful for Elon Musk to say that, AI is the most dangerous thing that we could think of, but of course he goes flat out to try and make it happen. So,
it's a tough one. Like I said, And that's the thing that people will always remember. Like you could say 1,000 things that they will latch on to the one thing, and that was one that definitely stood out, unfortunately, among many comments.
Yeah, it makes for good headline as well. And of course, movies will always portray AI in a dark, negative, and threatening way. But I don't think that on a day-to-day basis that I don't really find that the lack of funding or support is because people are afraid of it. By and large, I mean, there are obviously exceptions. There are people who are genuinely afraid of AI and don't want to see it happen. In fact, I was surprised, actually a bit dismayed, that I met quite a few years ago, I met Douglas Hofstadter, a hero of mine in the AI field. And I asked him about, when he thinks AGI will happen or what his thoughts are on that. And he said he hopes never. And he's really personally afraid of, he doesn't want his grandchildren to grow up in a world that has superhuman level AI. Now, he's there's a man I admire, and he's come to that conclusion. So I don't want to dismiss that, but as I say, I don't find that most people are concerned about that. Now, will human level AI, AGI, will that change society in that? Yes, profoundly. But there are a couple of arguments that one can have. The one is, will AI be friendly? Is AI an inherent risk? And we can talk about that. And my short answer is almost certainly not. Whereas some other people like Eliezer Yudkowsky will say almost certainly it will be against humans. It will be unfriendly unless we do give him money and they come up with a solution to prevent that. So my conclusion is exactly the opposite. And obviously worked on the technology for a long time. I've thought about it from philosophy, ethics, and so on. And so I see very little reason of why it should be unfriendly. And we can go into some of the details, but inherently we are building a machine whose purpose it is to serve us. It doesn't have a reptile brain that is pre-programmed for survival and reproduction as we are. So it doesn't inherently have those drives. There's no reason why it should have those drives. But again, it's a complex discussion. But I also think there's a good argument to be made that we need AGI to save ourselves from ourselves. Society is becoming so complex. I mean, there are many examples we can see. Politics is obviously a good one, but then environmental degradation and how we aren't really getting as much a handle on poverty and war as quickly as we should. I mean, things are getting better, but you still wonder, why do we have so much poverty and wars and irrationality in the world? So there are many ways in which society could go wrong. And I feel there's a good argument to be made that we need AGI to help us solve these problems, to help us think things through how society should be better managed or manage itself, and how we can deal with diseases, and epidemic is obviously a key topic now. So I think we need AGI. And then lastly, if you ask people, individuals, would you like to win the lottery? Would you like to be able to not have to worry about money, to be able to buy things for people you love, or to be able to pursue the things that really interest you, that you wouldn't have to work? Well, the vast majority of people will say, yeah, of course I'd love to win the lottery. Now, whether they would be able to cope with it or not, I mean, we know a lot of people aren't that happy after winning the lottery, but most people would feel that that's desirable. And getting AGI is essentially like everybody winning a lottery.
The thing that you brought up is very important. There's the conceptual belief of the what the outcome will result in, right? And lottery is a great example where everybody just thinks, oh, of course, if I had money, it would make everything better. It would give me all these freedoms, not realizing everything that comes along with it. And as you said, we've seen it proven out in a very small group of folks, because it's a fairly, relative to 7+ billion people on Earth, how many win the lottery, how many do have a truly positive result at the end of it. It's tough, even in general, like just day to day, when we look through and, like you said, talk about our exposure to AI, and it becomes a very true, map to cognitive behaviors, right? There's the experiencing self, so we think everything's okay, but then, the remembering self will go back and often rewrite things.
Right.
But the worst is that the pre-belief, the pre-understanding of what that outcome will be is often so vastly different. And because they haven't had a chance to experience it. So as those three phases, now we get into, out of the 7 billion people, how many actually actively care about AI being introduced into the world? How many of them actively distrust AI? And if we actually broke out the pie chart of the population that way, we'd probably find that it's a bunch of noisy folks on Twitter who are actually the ones that are the biggest opponents to it, but more so at 140 character or 280 characters at a time than actively going into the industry and trying to affect the outcome, which like you said, look at Elon. There's no, by any measurement of our ability to survive as a human, Elon will not live to see the outcomes that he's building towards. And he's acknowledged himself that this is very much, you can't even say it's a moonshot, it's a Mars shot, right? It's far beyond what anybody would say is intelligent to take on as a task. But the only way we're going to get to it is by somebody doing it. And it's just, I think it's way too easy for a lot of folks to just say, well, if we aren't going to get there, then there's no point in beginning. And that would, so you end up with this dichotomy of folks that are, especially with active voices in the industry.
Yes, it's easy to say we don't want it if you don't know how to get it,
Yeah.
AI. But the benefits of that AI can provide in helping us solve so many of the problems. I mean, diseases and aging and pollution, and even the cost of goods, and I mean, it can address poverty. I mean, they're just such an enormous number of benefits from that. But you're right, it takes people who are really passionate about the end goal, and either have the mental approach or can afford to not worry about the intermediate, sort of payoff, as it were.
The one thing that's always amazing as I look more and more, especially in the research field, you realize, like, actually I recently spoke with the fellow named Joe Bhakti, and he founded a company called QuantGene, and their goal is using machine learning towards solving diagnostics for cancers. And he has the same sort of concept. He's like, look, if I'd listened to everybody, I'd have gotten into, family, as a family physician, I've had a successful career by any measure. But he said, I want to go further. I want to take these first principles capabilities, and I want to not just incrementally make, prostate cancer more discoverable and solvable. He says, we want it all. And like and he says, by most people's opinions, it was a fundamentally terrible idea to do. He says, and that's why it's the greatest thing he feels he's doing, because they're achieving results now and being able to make these big changes. And that's where, like I said, even when you described it, you said it was actually an easy decision to take the time to understand why we're doing this. It's actually not an easy decision by most people's ability, because you are a rarity, Peter, in that you are taking a very noble mission on, I think, in doing that. We need more Peter Vosses in this world to do that.
Yeah, I think it's a matter of saying, do you feel you still have some, materialistic goal that you have to achieve or prove, or, are you sort of beyond that and say, well, no, I want to do something that's really important, important to me and hopefully important to other people. And once you come to that conclusion, then yeah, it becomes easy. And I mean, it's great that generally across the world, wealth is increasing. I mean, the number of millionaires and billionaires is, increasing, I don't know, exponentially, certainly very, very rapidly. And that's good because there are more people who are potentially in the position to do this kind of thing. Not that you need to be a billionaire to do it. I mean, you just need to, in some cases, it's the spouse who's earning money and lets the other spouse pursue their
Right.
goal and dream. But then many of these dreams, like AGI, you can't just do by yourself, and I imagine cancer research or any of it, or like going to Mars, you actually do need a lot of money to do it. As I said, I was limited to employing 10, 12 people for my research. And if I tried to do it by myself, if I didn't have the funds to actually employ people, then yeah, it would take forever, So, and we obviously now very much gearing up to increase our team on the development side as well, on the AI side. So, one of the principles that our investors also understand and buy into is that we are going to grow our development team as we become more successful. So we are not going to maximize profits in the company. Absolutely, that it's just a given that we will continue to increase the IQ of the system with sort of more fundamental development and some research as we commercially grow the company. And of course, the ideal is that this becomes a virtuous cycle where the development makes your product better and your better product gives you more money to increase development. Now, if I could write a big check myself, we could kind of accelerate that, or somebody could write a big check without destroying the company.
Yeah, well, and I think that's also the dilemma that you face as a founder, is that maintaining sort of the vision and core principles that you have for the firm and for the team, and then as you grow the organization, it's a very unique and challenging responsibility, because you have to make sure that you maintain that as you grow, and and you saw that, in the past, of course, as you had, successful exits and chosen exits, through time. It's, that the evolution of the company is often far beyond that of the founder. And so there will be a point where you have to sort of infuse that vision and that core to the heart of the organization. And so that you hope that, at least even if you choose to exit for whatever reason,
Mhm.
that it will continue on in the faith that you created it in.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that's having the right partners in business. The really the whole company ideally would share that vision. And we have a fantastic team, people who are really passionate about what we're doing and basically making Aigo smarter. But also in a practical way. But yeah, I certainly hope that this is a vehicle that will take us to AGI, Aigo.ai. And when people ask me, well, when do I want to do something different? Well, when Aigo gets smarter than I am, that's when I will take it easy. At the moment, my passion is I work every weekend. That's my passion. I couldn't think of doing anything else. Now, this can happen one of two ways: that Aigo gets smarter than me. I can get dumber, and Aigo can get smarter. So when those, if I get dumb enough,
There are
quickly
two
enough,
directional forces that are at play here.
right?
Now, the other thing that I'm always curious is, as you have to take this vision and the capabilities and the direct and what the company's solving, as you especially go to investors and customers, how do you find the gap of understanding now relative to when you began in that early in, literally coining the phrase for AGI, like you must have seen an incredible evolution in how much different it is to tell the story to today's audience than it was in the past. And is it still a challenge sometimes, depending on who that audience is?
It's become more of a challenge because, there's a whole generation now of people who think of AI as being deep learning, machine learning. The more data you throw at it, you build a statistical model, and that's AI. 10 years ago, we didn't have that. So they often, you're talking to people who really have no idea about, what intelligence is, or early approaches to AI and so on. So in that way, it actually become more challenging that most people equate AI with deep learning, machine learning. I mean, my own journey in terms of pitching this to employees and co-founders, investors, and so on over the years. Certainly, when I started, in earnest, putting together a team in 2001. I thought that we would be able to get to human level or near human level intelligence much quicker than we did. So it certainly turned out to be much harder than I thought. After spending 5 years doing the theory, and on paper it all looked okay. We know what we need to do. We just need to do it. But then, as we started building these prototypes, we certainly made some good progress, but also realized just how hard it is to get to human level understanding and what the challenges are. So I think I have a more realistic view now of just how difficult the issues are. But from an approach and architecture point of view, I would say almost nothing has changed. And looking sort of from a higher level, I think the original understanding of intelligence, the importance of concept formation, of context, of metacognition, and some other technical issues has just been reinforced, that we need to build those machines. How absolutely crucial interactive learning is, one-shot learning, and interacting with the environment. You can't just collect a bunch of data, build a model, and then have a kind of a read-only model. The model needs to be built by interacting with the environment. It needs to be able to respond to things in the environment. It needs to be able to act on the environment and have that interaction. So, that's just been reinforced, that we need that. I have a much greater appreciation of the narrow AI trap, how hard it is to run a commercial operation and not just kind of, use the programmer's intelligence to solve the problem, rather than trying to build the intelligence in the machine. But we have I think, a clear path to getting closer and closer to human level. I don't see any reason why we couldn't get there. It will just take a lot of effort for a number of reasons. But it is, as I say, it's hard to explain that, to even have a conversation about that, because of the prevalence and the enormous success in many ways that deep learning, machine learning has had, especially in driving advertising. And that's, of course, billions and billions,
Sadly, that's the first place it was applied, right?
And still the main place where it's applied. I mean, it's recommendations, placing targeted ads, and that's what people really use it for. And it is, of course, very successful in that area.
Yeah, and it's always an interesting thing, and I look, especially as folks who, the intelligence that's being put behind that, because obviously it's a very commercially strong industry, and there's a lot of ability to have financial feedback from it that will be positive in growing other areas. So it's always tough. Like, I'm always torn, because I'm like, I wish we didn't have to do that, but the hope is that in doing that, that there's things that come out of it, and I look, obviously, like other folks like Cassie Kozyrkov, who's a, incredible mind in AI and what she's doing through Google. And you just hope that hopefully she's that she and the team also get a time to go outside of just the ad world and really bring back to medical and environmental and areas where we can take these capabilities and then apply them into other parts of the world that we can have a greater long-term effect, rather than just telling me that because I bought this book, I would probably like this other book, which is
Right.
where an unfortunate amount of that work tends to go. When you look right now, Peter, at people that are coming up, through the university system, I'm curious how well prepared are today's students coming into the university ecosystem with what capabilities are out in the world right now technologically, and at this place we are with AI and moving towards AGI. We've obviously got cloud learning. We've got the cloud computing that enhances the ability for people to begin without having to be commercially bound, like financially bound to a lot of stuff. But is the intellectual side of it and the research side of it keeping up, or where do you feel those are aligned right now?
Well, certainly in the field of AI, I think it's bad. I mean, I can almost say an unmitigated disaster, because it's almost like what we learned about AI in the first few decades is being lost. That people come into the field now knowing only about statistical approaches, essentially. And some logic things, but it's really all brute force, statistical. And I don't see that getting us anywhere in real AI, in really intelligent systems. And I'm not sure how we're going to recover from that. But the whole academic system, as I mentioned earlier as well, is not actually very well aligned with what you need to make breakthroughs in artificial general intelligence. On the one hand, you have it driven very hard by benchmarks, established benchmarks, and whether these benchmarks are actually particularly meaningful or not, that's what people have to do. This is what they're measured by. How are you doing on this benchmark? And that's kind of quick and easy way to measure their worth, supposedly. But I think that's very bad. And then obviously a lot of people in academia are now also being sucked into commercial things. There's a lot of opportunities, and it's great for young people to be able to quickly jump into a startup. And I think that's super exciting, getting the business experience, that there's just such a lot of opportunities for young people from academia to very quickly get involved in commercial projects and incubators and startups. The question is more, the business experience is great, I think, but ultimately, what are they doing? Are they doing the next Uber for dog food, or getting the business experience is great, but what is the business actually doing? It's capturing keystrokes so that you can do even more targeted advertising, or
Right.
sell data to somebody else. And because obviously people funding these incubators and that want to see the unicorns, and see the success. So yeah, I'm not very optimistic that we're getting a lot of people who actually take the time to really understand intelligence. In fact, there's this whole kind of subjectivism in philosophy. It says, well, intelligence is whatever you say it is, or words are whatever you say they are. They really have no grounding to reality. We make up reality, and so that doesn't help either.
It is a very interesting thing, and I also appreciated that in your choice to go down the road, you could go down the pure path of just studying the science of and the technology, but adding philosophy into it is important. And I look at there are a lot of folks that are really strong in the field of physics and mathematics. They're usually much better off, they say, in the time they've spent in studying that side of the world, I'd say folks like Sam Harris will say the most profound thing he did for his intelligence, his intellectual studies was to discover mushrooms, so there's his choice of going down and understanding that really opened up how he learned about behavior, and it opened him up to different things. If you look and you can study philosophy, it does open that door to much more why, and like you said, it's as a researcher, as a founder, to have those roots, I think, is important. Now, when you're choosing a team and you're choosing your people that you're going to work with and build with, I'm curious, Peter, what's your sort of selection process, and how do you find the folks that would be a good fit for you?
Yeah. So a lot of the people we've hired that we have in our company are pretty much straight out of college, or with sort of I mean, obviously engineers. If we software engineers, we want them to have some working experience in actually engineering. But on the side of what we call AI psychologists, who are sort of really working on understanding Aigo's brain and improving it, we there isn't really any training that they could have, because our approach is so different. And if we had somebody who had a decade or more of AI experience, that would actually be much harder for them to unlearn what they've learned in AI. So we're really looking for smart people, motivated people, and typically they have a good understanding of language, because we're doing conversational AI. That's where our focus is right now. And so cognitive psychology and linguistics are usually the two things that come together. But you actually raise another important point in terms of AI, more broadly AI researchers. What I've found is I've had some brilliant engineers work for me over the years that fundamentally are logicians or mathematicians or statisticians. Their training, their background is logic based in some way, and they often cannot relate to the problem we're trying to solve, to intelligence, from a cognitive psychology point of view at all. And it's a problem. And of course, the brilliant people we have driving machine learning, deep learning now, are typically mathematicians, statisticians, logicians.
Right.
That's their background, that's their training, that's their strengths. But you cannot solve, I believe very strongly, you cannot solve artificial general intelligence or AI without first understanding it from a cognitive psychology point of view. You first have to, cognitive psychology really being cognitive science, cognitive psychology, and also epistemology, I think, is necessary, so cognitive science. Because you really have to understand what intelligence is first, and to some way how it operates in humans, to be able to build a machine that has intelligence. And that's quite rare, because typically cognitive psychologists aren't very good at programming on sort of logic, mathematics, and so on. That's normally not their forte. So the people we have on our team typically are comfortable in both sides. They're comfortable in the sort of logic programming side of things, but also understand intelligence from a cognitive psychology point of view. So you first have to understand the problem from a cognitive psychology point of view, but then you also have to have the skills and understanding and mindset to be able to solve it in a computer.
Right. Yeah. It's the difference between me writing a large scale program to use Bayesian inference based on past purchases for my wife to decide what I should get her for Valentine's Day, or me asking her, "Sweetie, what would you like for Valentine's Day?" It's the beautiful pairing of those two things, right?
Right.
Now, if you could pick something tangible and meaningful to you, Peter, underneath all this, I can imagine you must have or even a personal or at least a goal that you would like to see solved through the capabilities that Aigo and your team and other folks in the industry. Like what can AGI really do? What's a meaningful thing that you're hoping to see?
Well, a deep mind in a way is say it that you solve intelligence and then let it solve everything else. So intelligence by itself, building a machine with intelligence and all the benefits that machine intelligence has, being able that you can do 1 million copies of it. Once you have an AI that can be a cancer researcher and has all the knowledge of a cancer researcher, you can make 1 billion copies of it, and suddenly you have 1 billion PhD level cancer researchers,
Right.
or whatever. So really what motivates me is cracking AGI. But there is something that is in a way more important. I love life and I'd like to have more of it. And I'd like other people who want to have more of life to be able to have more of life. So basically anti-aging, to be able to extend our lives indefinitely, for as long as we want to live. Because I think it's kind of a cruel joke that evolution gave us this, the wonderful ability to understand the world, to achieve things in the world, to love, to appreciate things, and just to live, and to be able to experience life at the level at which we as humans can do that. But typically, it takes us a while to really figure out how to live, and after being married a few times and raised a few kids, had a few careers, a few bankruptcies, and you're kind of starting to get the handle of oh yeah, I'm getting a handle on how to live this life, and then it's over, by the time you learn how to live life. So I think it'd be great if we could use AI to help us extend healthy human life, so that is a particular goal, and I'm personally very interested in life extension. I actually have been on calorie restriction for the last 20 years to try and eke out as many extra healthy years as I can. And as Kurzweil also writes, the bridge to a bridge. So if we can live long enough to benefit from initial life extension technology, which may be quite limited, but might buy us an extra 5 years. During those 5 years, the technology might improve to buy us another 10 years. So I don't know if it's going to happen, but I think that is a very worthwhile goal to pursue, is for us to be able to extend life.
Yeah, and it's a noble goal, and I mean everything you're doing has a very noble outcome, and I appreciate that there are Peter Vosses in this world that are doing this sort of thing, because I think that's truly what we need. It's funny, I mean, you talked about sort of calorie restriction and just making personal choices. I remembered years ago seeing there's a film called Transcendent Man. It's actually about Ray Kurzweil, and the filmmaker at some point, they actually sort of hone in on the fact that he eats like just an armload of pills on a daily basis, and he's effectively, a lot of his diet is very, sort of purist, and it's literally chemical, in that he's, just raw enzymes, basics that will just what the body needs, and to most people, they're like, oh, I don't know if that's actually going to work. Even like people ask me, like, why do you eat, particular types of foods and styles of foods and exercise the way you do? And I say, well, my goal is to, live longer, to be healthy throughout that course of that life. And they often say, well, it probably doesn't make that much of a difference. And I said, well, I don't know, but I will know when I'm old enough to have looked back on it. I think that's my own personal choice to try and, live well and do good things. And it's funny, one other thing too, Peter, you talked about, somebody else who I remembered hearing the phrase from Peter Thiel, and he says, we were promised the future of Star Trek, but all we got was the Star Trek computer. And I do love that you're working towards further than, let's actually get outcomes from that computer and see what we can do to affect the world in a positive way.
Yeah. Well, I think there's very good evidence, so that healthy lifestyle does increase your health span. I mean, sure, unforeseen things can happen, but statistically, I think there's a very strong correlation that the last 15, 20 years of your life are going to be you're going to be a lot better shape and probably live an extra 10 years, compared to the average American kind of diet and health.
Yeah, it's one thing I do hope that, just in the same way with what we can do as a society towards, technologically and just, in a community, what can we do to better the world? And it's funny, even personally, people that the last place they look is what's on the plate in front of them. As like, how do I affect the future? I want to do all these things for my kids, and yet they make unfortunate personal choices on a regular basis, and it's hard, because we're fighting our own brain's ability. Of course sugar tastes better, of course these things, like our body is meant to react, but if you can retrain yourself to react positively to other things. Like I used to always joke with people, I'd say, you go to McDonald's or whatever and you eat, and I don't mean to pick on McDonald's, but just as an example, a good fast food, and that's why I should pick on McDonald's as a good but they, like in a couple hours later, you really regret that what you did, right? And I'd say I regret it on the way in the restaurant. Like I already know I'm going to feel bad on the first bite, and I don't even go anymore just because it's like, at first it'd be like, oh, I'm going to go because my kids are going or friends are going. And now I'm just like, I'd just be happy sitting on that table with an empty tray in front of me. And as I know, I'll feel better in the world for having done that. But no, it's good. So Peter, anything else? What's the best way if people want to follow what you're doing? Obviously, folks can go to Aigo.ai and see what's going on there. I also loved your, the beautiful mixture of human and technology. I like, your marketing folks are fantastic. It's beautiful phrasing. So the future is here. We know because we created it.
Yeah, well, that's the marketing side of things. I also I have a lot of my articles on medium.com, so you can just look medium.com and my name. But yes, Aigo.ai, we actually have links to quite a bit of stuff. And apart from that, I'm on Facebook and Twitter as well. And you always welcome hearing from people. And and obviously anybody who wants to help us grow our company commercially, get new clients, get funding to accelerate our vision, that's always welcome.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Peter. This has been a real pleasure, and I've enjoyed exploring some interesting areas. I hope, definitely it's rare to find somebody who's got the industry experience and the ability to really tell the stories. I often say too, is I've got incredibly smart people I'm surrounded by on a regular basis, but I know a lot of great people that would probably not even pass a Turing test. It's really a beautiful mixture to be able to tell the story and relate the capabilities and present the vision the way you do, and then also to actively affect the outcome. So it's very welcome, and I thank you very much.
Well, thanks for having me. This was fun. Thank you.
All right, that's perfect. That'll be the end of the recording there. But thank you, Peter. That was really good. I appreciate that. Hopefully, it was fun, and it's like I said, it's not often you get a chance to dive into people that have such a vast experience as you do.
Yeah, well, hopefully we'll bump into each other one day in person. Where are you located?
I'm in New Jersey, so although my accent wouldn't give it away, I'm actually Canadian. I'm a recent import to New Jersey, struggling with the immigration system as we speak. Not easy to become a new citizen during a pandemic, I've learned. So,
well, it wasn't easy for me to come to America either 25 years ago. So, but I can imagine it's even harder now.
Yeah. Whereabouts are you located, Peter?
Los Angeles.
Oh, excellent. Okay, excellent. Yeah. Well, I do hope I'd really like to be able to get together again. So thank you very much. And I'll through the folks at Kitcaster, I'll let you know when the episode goes up. I think it's about 4 or 5 weeks right now of a backlog. The good news is the podcasting business is good. The downside is it means there's a bit of a gap between when we chat and when it goes live sometimes.
That's fine. Great.
Excellent. Great. Peter, thank you very much. Have a great day now.
You too. Bye-bye.